This Choircast podcast is brought to you by The Collective. At The Collective, we believe that justice isn't optional, it's actually sacred. That's why we're building a growing library of progressive resources, connecting you with queer and Black-owned businesses, linking to books that challenge the status quo, and delivering content that empowers you to resist fascism with clarity and compassion. So join the movement. Support the mission. Visit The Collective, that's QUOLLECTIVE.com, The Collective, to learn more and get involved.
Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast, your journey, actually our journey together beyond inherited beliefs to a spirituality that works for you. I'm your host, Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. We can fix that later, right? No? Damn. Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Gabby.
And we are going to talk today about why young adults are leaving the church. We talked a little bit about this last week. We've got a whole other set of things. And I think that this is something that churches are having a hard time with. They are panicking. They want to know why. And because they know that the survival of the denomination of that individual church is something that is not viable if they don't have younger people continuing to be part of it. And people who are parents or grandparents have watched their young adults leave, and they are concerned also for their young adults not having this same source of life in their lives as they had. So I, alas, am no longer and should never be classified as a young adult, right? We do have Gabby here, who is an actual young adult.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I'm happy to be still in the young adult category.
Right, and I actually work with a lot of young adults. Obviously, there's a lot of young adults on social media.
Right.
So I think one of the things that go ahead and give us a topic to start off with.
Let's talk about the doctrine of hell, because I feel like that's something that is very much a reason why people don't want to attend,
right?
Because of what this doctrine means for people.
And there's a wide range of what hell is, what the Bible says about it. But there is a sort of a popular notion of what Christians believe about hell. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. So if you had to give an overview, what is that popular notion?
So I feel like are you talking about like in the secular world or within like evangelical Christianity? Because I feel I
think that it's the popular notion is really when people hear the word hell, they think this evangelical version of it.
Right. I think a major understanding is that terrible people go to hell, people who are murderers and rapists and do all sorts of terrible oppression to people and whatnot.
For sure.
And I guess if we're diving a little bit deeper into Christian doctrine.
And like what people assume Christians believe.
Right. Is that, yes, that's actually a great way to phrase that, is that people who do not believe in Jesus are going to hell. So people who did not give their life to Christ, are not saved in Christ's name, are burning in hell forever. Right. So if we actually look at the world, that's actually a majority of the world. If we consider Middle East and Asia and all the people who follow different religions, that's a big chunk. And
so how does that play for young adults that causes them to leave the church?
I'm looking at this from different angles, and I wanted to share a little bit about my story.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And so, when I was in undergrad, this was like the time that I was on fire for Christ, as we like to say, a very super Christian, reading my Bible and just an extremist. Sure. I remember reading about what he would say about hell. And I was like, if hell is real, I need to spend the rest of my life preaching the gospel.
Right.
I truly believe that this doctrine was real. I was like, I'm going to become a missionary. Like, I devoted my life. I'm going to be a missionary. I'm going to go to the 1040 window. For those who don't know what that is the unreached and the unengaged parts of the world. So 1040 is like 10 degrees above the equator and 40 degrees below. And I was going to go to the parts that nobody wanted to go to, because I was like, eternity. We're talking about eternal conscious torment for the rest of eternity.
Yeah. So eternal conscious torment is the important part. So it after you die, for the rest of forever, you will be like burning, scared, whatever, in pain, suffering, and torment.
Yes.
And that will, and it's not just happening to you, you will be conscious of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that deeply disturbed me. So I was like, why would I not spend my life trying to help people not go there?
Yeah.
And so what really bothered me was that I seemed to be one of only 0 other young adults who cared about this issue.
Yeah.
Everybody else was like, I'm just going to get a regular job and work, in the industry and just tell people just wanted to live their life and be comfortable. And I'm like, no.
Right.
And so
if this is true, we have an emergency.
That's exactly where my convictions. I'm like, why isn't every other Christian feel this way?
Right.
And it bothered me to see that other people just were living their life, going regular Sunday Christian attenders, and then went about their week and didn't care about the state of the world.
Which I think, though, betrays this as sort of deeply problematic. Like at a core human level, that the people who are adherents to this religion, who go to these churches, it is so troubling and so like opposite of anything that seems fair or right or just, that they just can't believe it in that level of like, I'm going to respond to this in the way that it seems to demand logically. Right. They just go about their lives. Knowing everybody else is burning in hell. But I think what they're really doing is they are kind of saying like, they'll probably be okay.
I think that's probably what the mentality is. But that for me already left a distaste in my mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't like this one that I feel I'm the only person who cares. So already feeling like a minority in these spaces.
Right.
Then, like you said, looking at this actual doctrine and what it stands for, it does not make sense with a loving God.
Right.
I'm sorry. I don't know what the justification is to be like, because God is loving, I always hear this. He's also a justice-oriented God. Why would he not punish someone who murdered a child?
Oh my gosh.
But how is that equal to someone who just someone who never heard the gospel, is a Muslim, grew up, let's just say, in the Middle East, just did not have access to Christianity? How could they be at fault?
And what I think this eternal conscious punishment doctrine of hell does is when you layer on other problems, right? People not hearing about this religion, all of these other things, what really brings those other problems to a state of crisis is this underlying doctrine of eternal conscious punishment. Right. And I think that's like one of the it's really frustrating. And to me, we'll finish your story. So you're the only one. Yeah,
I did have, I will say, another friend who cared equally into doing mission work, but it was just me and him and a group of hundreds of other young adults on campus in my church. And so the story ended up that I ended up leaving the church. Just because I got to the point where it feels like a huge burden to be the only person who really cares about this. And it's not like hell's not talked about. There was turn and burn sermons all the time.
Right. And for people who are not familiar with a turn and burn sermon, give us an example, a little outline.
Hey, you basically need to believe in Jesus, because if not, you are going to burn in eternity forever.
Well, yeah. And I think it starts with some Bible verse, some story. Right. And normally what I think happens is it zeroes in on a sin.
Right.
And it's not like murder. right? It's like
usually
lying, gossiping.
Right.
We're going to tell some stories about somebody lying. We're going to tell somebody some stories about somebody gossiping. We're going to talk about, and then normally they go back to the Old Testament. They talk about that when people sinned in the Old Testament, that it required some sort of death, some sort of sacrifice, some sort of blood. And so there was like clearly an extreme punishment. And then they pivot from that to telling people about hell.
Right.
And how, you don't have to be a murderer to go to hell, right? You just have to sin. Maybe you're a gossip, right? Maybe you lie a lot, right? Maybe you have sex outside of marriage.
That one's always talked about on campus.
Right? Yeah. All of these things. And God doesn't want you to go to hell, but God's going to give you the choice. In fact, God's giving you the choice today.
Yes.
Today is the day of salvation. Right?
Triggered.
and then we go into the but this is the turn or burn. You've got to turn from your sin. Yeah. And by that they mean say
repent.
And say a prayer.
Right.
And so people hear these sermons. Yeah. And what's the reaction from the people who leave the church because of them?
Like people who leave the church after hearing a turn or burn.
Yeah.
I think they start struggling.
Yeah.
Because they're like, is the stuff that I think they feel what I feel and a lot of people feel. It's just like, I don't think this aligns with a loving God. But then it's like that guilt that you feel for everything that you heard in these sermons. Like, is there an afterlife? I have no idea. Yeah. I don't think there's a hell. I don't think. But at the end of the day, I'm still afraid of something that I'm not sure about.
Yeah. And so here's what is really interesting to me. So I grew up with that, right? A version of that, church camp, all these things, conferences. And, but it turns out that the earliest versions of Christianity didn't believe that.
Interesting.
Which makes sense.
Right.
Because they are arguing for a loving God, a God who's concerned with justice. And when you're talking about the early Christian movement, you're talking about a city with 100,000 people and 20 Christians.
Yeah.
Right? And when you are a massive cultural force, as Christianity is here, it's not as sort of on the surface unjust as it is when you are 20 people.
Right.
Right? And so the cognitive dissonance in that belief is so great. It's untenable, right? Yeah. So the early Christians, and for a long time, the most popular view was still that God wanted people to choose God, to choose Jesus, but that choice extended into the afterlife. There was also this notion, find it in Romans chapter 1, that there is something called general revelation. And that means that everybody has experienced God through what God has created. And they can respond to that and follow that without knowing these specifics, right? And theologically, God's creation is also internal because God creates people.
Right.
And so in each person is the image of God. So we have this echo of God inside of us. And so for the early church, they didn't believe that. And that idea of continuing into the afterlife was the most hundreds and hundreds of years. That was the most popular thing. And the idea that it was conscious punishment and torment it's not really supported by the Bible.
Right. I mean, I've heard Paul himself was an annihilationist,
Right.
The belief that once you die, it's kind of like you're done. There's like nothing after that.
Well,
right. Did I say that correctly?
Kind of. I think that Paul was a little more nuanced view, where Paul would say that the righteous get an afterlife.
Okay.
And the unrighteous cease to exist.
I see.
Right. And that's an inference from Paul, because Paul will talk about the reward for the righteous being eternal life. And then he doesn't really say anything about the wicked. And so mostly, yeah, but you're right. And there are some people who clearly in the New Testament are annihilationists. But the problem is, like, in the Bible, there's really 3 words that people use for hell. One of them is the Old Testament word Sheol. And Sheol was not a place of torment. It was where every single person went after they died.
Right.
And that's actually how you have this concept of being able to call back people from the dead, mediums, those kind of people. The Witch of Endor with Saul, or with David, I think, or Solomon. I can't, man. If I was a Baptist, I'd know. Calling a dead king back from the dead, and because they're calling them up from Sheol. Everybody's down there. Sort of a negative to neutral existence. That's that. That's like the whole Old Testament. Then in the New Testament, you have Gehenna, which is an actual place. Like if you and I ever go to Israel together, which I would love to do.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
On my bucket list. I do want to go
for sure. I'm an archaeology nerd. So if we ever go, as we are going out of the old city of Jerusalem, that was like the city during Jesus' time, there's a place that you can point to and you're like, that's Gehenna. And this is a place where priests, before Jesus' time, were said to have offered child sacrifices.
Right.
And so it's like the most unholy place imaginable. It's a metaphor that Jesus is using to call into the minds of these people what he's talking about when Gehenna is the word. And in a good translation, like the New Revised Standard Updated Edition, you'll actually get the word Gehenna, or the Hinnom Valley.
Got it.
And then there's Hades. Hades is Greek mythology, right?
Right.
River Styx, whole deal. And again, everybody knew that story. Everybody knew that idea. And so Jesus, like the rich man and Lazarus story, Jesus says they go down to Hades. They're in Hades. And, Hades has like people who are bad. Like the guy rolls the rock up the hill, only have it go back down, has to do that for eternity. Well, you have the rich man and Lazarus, both in Hades. Lazarus is having a good time partying it up with Abraham. The rich man is in a pit of thirstiness, right? And no water. And Jesus is using that concept to say something.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, but I think, the average evangelical Christian doesn't take the time to like look up what these terms mean, because unfortunately that's not what's preached at the pulpit.
Right. Yeah. And I think with this, and I think in popular culture, people just assume that about Christians. And that sort of gets people to leave, and gets people to not even try.
Yeah, because why would there's so much, I feel like, hypocrisy here, because it's like, you want me to believe and give my life to an all-loving God, but then also if so this is not getting into some theology, fall out of his grace, I'm going to burn in hell forever.
Right.
It's like, I love you only on the contingency that you love me back.
Right.
And you could come up to heaven. But if not, like if any human
it's
did
not
that,
unconditional love.
We would call them a tyrant.
Yes.
But because it's God, it's okay.
Right. And just at the root level, eternal punishment for mistakes in a finite lifetime.
It's crazy.
Totally messed up. All right. So people are definitely leaving the church because of that.
I was gonna say, what's another reason you would give?
Today.
Maybe, today.
Like this exact day, it's the co-opting of Christianity by a political Christian nationalist movement and the co-opting of passages to support the conditions that lead to gun violence and all of this stuff. And people like Charlie Kirk, who claimed to be Christian, but said horribly racist things and all of this, like, and I have empathy for the people who are grieving, right? He has loved ones.
Right.
They're going to grieve the loss of somebody they loved.
Right.
I have empathy for them, and I'm really sorry for them. And I'm completely opposed to gun violence and murder.
100%.
I'm 100%. But death doesn't absolve you of all of it. It doesn't turn you into a different person. It doesn't turn you into a saint.
Right.
And so there's a sense of turning him into a saint, and then a sense of people, and then not just that, there's like people revealing themselves, right? For they believed all of these wild things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Christian nationalist movement has plagued our society. I mean, I don't even know how to describe the horrors it's done. I mean, I think it's so anti-gospel to be a Christian nationalist for so many reasons. Because even in my most evangelical times, I always said the call was for Jesus to make disciples.
I'm listening to you. I've got to fix your audio.
No worries. But the call is for Jesus to make disciples, not to make America Christian. So I don't understand why there is this movement of Christian nationalism. To me, it's really an idolatry of nation over God, right? Like Christians constantly, I feel, equate loyalty to the U.S. with loyalty to God. Therefore, patriotism turns into some sort of quasi-religion, and it rebrands political symbols, like, to me, the flag, the American flag, that is so charged. I mean, I see an American flag now and I recoil because I know what it stands for, and I don't agree with those things, and Christian nationalism feels very intertwined with white supremacy. So I think there's a lot of issues with people being like, hey, we don't support that. But a lot of churches are rooted in that sort of ideology. And people who have a little bit of common sense are like, I don't stand for this and don't want to stay, Right. And I feel like when I saw, and I second you on everything you said about Charlie Kirk, but I feel like I saw a lot of Christians crashing out. Like, why are Christians lose common sense? And why are they calling him a martyr now? Martyr is so shameful to even use that word.
No, yeah,
but
that's
a
not
martyr,
what that is.
Yeah, to be a martyr. And now this is an attack on Christianity. And this girl was, she's Christian crashing out. I'm like, girl, I crashed out so hard that I left because I just couldn't do it.
Right.
I just couldn't do it. So I agree with you. There's definitely...
Well, tell me your story. Tell me a story of experiencing that.
Of experiencing Christian nationalism?
Yeah, in church stuff, right? This is one of the things that and not maybe even Christian nationalism, because I think Christian nationalism is this sort of extreme point, and but really, it's really the conservative politics being placed on Christianity, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, who hasn't experienced Christian nationalism affecting their day to day? I mean, it's affecting our policies today with these ICE raids. They're all fueled by, oh my God, they're all fueled by, I feel like, Christian nationalist views. Like, okay, this country is supposed to be ours, and we're supposed to serve God. Or, okay, actually, you know what? Let's talk about gay marriage, because I always was like, if God gave us free will, and we all believe that, why not let people execute their exercise their free will?
Yeah.
Why are we trying to control people on their morality on marriage? Do you not believe God to be big enough to then, again, this is the argument on that side, right? To be big enough to be able to save anybody no matter where they are in life.
Right.
So why are we policing this one thing? And then Christian nationalists will go as far to say, well, gay people can't have kids. Oh, really? So we're going to let straight couples raise kids who can be very abusive, very harmful. But then a gay couple who wants to be loving and actually give them a good home, they can't be a parent because they're gay.
Yeah.
And that's all I feel like tied with Christian nationalist ideologies.
Well, yeah. And then it's like the taking of that idea and making it into policy. And then, the endorsement of in churches of political candidates and political policies that arise out of this like misuse of Christianity.
Yeah. And another thing that it loves to do is, again, like it's so hard because we shouldn't even be intermingling politics with religion, right? Like I believe in a separation of church and state for a reason. But one of the goals Christian nationalism has is to make, like I said, America Christian. That's the only religion. So you actually don't believe in religious freedom. And by you doing that, you are, privileging this religion over others and then telling people that they can't practice their own beliefs.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, this isn't just this happening in a church. Right. In a worship service. No. I think what is driving a lot of people away is Christians themselves. Yes. Especially what they are saying on social media, because your young adult child or grandchild or niece or nephew is seeing what you're posting online and saying, I can't believe they think this. I can't believe that this is what Christianity is. And then they go back and they're like, well, this matches all the stuff that I grew up with.
Oh my God, yes. And I feel like that's something that outraged me when, I saw, like, again, with what Jeremy said, what happened with Charlie Kirk was absolutely awful. No one should die at the hands of gun violence. We shouldn't even have guns to begin with. But I was really shocked at the amount of Christians who, are silent usually on social media and decided to start posting about Charlie Kirk was a hero and this is the worst thing ever, but then remain silent on the Democratic senator that died last month, Melissa Hortman, right?
And tell us that story. That story deserves to be told.
Melissa Hortman was a Democratic politician who was literally gunned down in her home. Her husband, and her dog were shot, killed. But yet there was no flag raised half-mast for her. No. There's no flag raised half-mast for the children who consistently die in school shootings. Right. But there is a flag raised for Charlie Kirk, someone who was hateful, racist, xenophobic, homophobic, all these things. But because he was a Trump loyalist, Trump is going to go ahead and give him the medal of, he got some sort of medal I saw, which is wild to me.
And just as troubling is, so I saw a thing, all of these living presidents, making comments, and you know what? I'm going to read this one, because I am a more progressive person, which means I generally will align with more left politicians, And so, but I want to say, our living Republican former president, George Bush, says, today a young man was murdered in cold blood while expressing his political views. It happened on a college campus where the open exchange of opposing ideas should be sacrosanct. Violence and vitriol must be purged from the public square. Members of other political parties are not our enemies. They are our fellow citizens. Okay. So you contrast that with our current president making a video blaming the people of the other political party, not just for him, but like it just, in marriage therapy, it's called kitchen sinking, right? We're going to throw everything into there. And it's just wrong.
100%.
And then when your hyper Christian evangelical aunt reposts the video, the video of our current president, and says yes, or I stand with our current president. Like, and their young adult family members, friends see that. I mean, they're done.
Yeah.
They're really done.
Yeah. No, it's truly is baffling. And one thing that I just can't get over it is just a repeat of like people just being like, we love Charlie Kirk, but it's like, did we all hear the same stuff that he used to say?
Right. All right. So we've got young adults are leaving the church because of the doctrine of hell, the evangelical perspective on that. Young adults are leaving the church because of Christian nationalism and the conservative politics appropriating the Christian religion.
And the hypocrisy.
And sort of the hypocrisy of that.
Yes.
What's another one?
Oh, maybe how the church is so anti-science. Like,
and I always correct you. Not the church, right? Not Christianity.
I know. Conservatives.
Sure. Evangelicals, fundamentalists.
Okay, yeah, I should say fundamentalists.
My stream of Christianity does not believe this, but this is important because this is a perception.
It is. For me, all of it. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, the progressive movement doesn't align with this, and I guess I'm still so new to this progressive space. This has not been my 24 years experience in the church. But no, you're right. Fundamentalist, right? It's very much a anti-evolution, just science. Like, we believe Adam and Eve, and if the Bible didn't mention dinosaurs, then dinosaurs aren't real.
Right. Like, so you've got to find dinosaurs in the Bible.
Yeah. Like, because the Bible's supposed to be a science book for us.
Yeah, right. Either they've got to find like Leviathan and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Or they've got to say, have you ever heard the other theory for dinosaurs?
No, what is it?
And the bones? Have you heard this?
No, I might have not.
It's demons.
For the little God.
The whole thing about the fall from heaven and demons, and that Satan planted the demons in the earth to lead people astray.
Oh my God, I'm just so tired of people saying the enemy. No, stop blaming him for everything.
You're right. No. So, the thing that troubles me, creationism, this creation pseudoscience.
Right.
It's, I think, the most visible expression of this, because it's like saying the earth is 6,000 years old.
Is wild.
Right.
I don't even know why there's new creationists versus old creationists. There shouldn't even be a distinction. Right. Like, we have the evidence that the earth is not 6,000 years old.
Right. Yeah. The universe is 13.5 billion years old. Right. It's measurable.
Right.
And speciation doesn't happen like this happens in the Bible. Yeah. Like, it's one of those things that's like, just not like, there's nothing there. And there's no scientific consensus there. And when that is preached, and when somebody, like, did you ever ask the question about evolution? Like, why is this?
I might have. I just don't remember.
And I was given creation science and books and resources. And I'm old, so it was before the internet.
Wait, books on young earth creationist movement?
There's lots of that.
Oh my God.
Curriculum, right? I'm old. This is before the internet. So, like, I just couldn't Google it. And so I assumed that these authority figures in my life were right. And some of them had advanced degrees. But the thing that troubles me too about the anti-scientific thing is that it extends beyond creationism. Or did you ever experience like anti-science in other fields of science in your upbringing? Medicine or any of that kind of stuff?
In my upbringing,
psychology.
So I would say in my upbringing, no, but I was very much exposed to it when I was really active in fundamentalist Christianity.
Tell me about that.
I had a friend who was sharing a story about her friend who was very Christian, and she was like, her family did not believe in medicine. They weren't allowed to take Tylenol for headaches because God is a healer and that's from the devil. We don't need that. And just could not take ibuprofen for any, like just medicine that we take to make us feel better for having a, you know, bad back pain or whatever. Wasn't allowed to take medicine. Wild. I also know of other people who do not believe in therapy because God is a healer of all things. And actually what you have is a demon. You just need to get those demons manifested and your anxiety, your depression will go away.
So it's not a chemical imbalance.
No. So for them, it very much was like, you have a demon. And so it was very much made light of like, oh, that's just, let's not actually address mental health issues.
Mocked.
Oh yeah. 100%. Like, I already hear sermons. Like, if you're depressed, you haven't accepted Jesus all the way. Like, you haven't actually walked all the way in love. You haven't surrendered all the way.
You haven't been fully filled with the Holy Spirit.
Exactly. And so it's just like, and so people, what are they to do when they do try to pray more and read more and it's actually not helping them?
Right. And especially if they're given this like super guilt heavy reading when they read the Bible, that does not help. And I saw it like like what you're talking about in medicine, in vaccines, right? Because once you lose trust in the qualifications of scientists, right, then it's all up for grabs. It's actually it can turn into this lack of respect for any academic authority. Right. That's how you can reject biblical scholars. It's how you can reject people who are talking about vaccines and psychology and all of that kind of stuff. And I think, at least my experience, is a root of it is in this creation science.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't see why we can't incorporate what we know into our, like, why can't we just acknowledge evolution's real and move along? Like, why does it have to be in opposition to one another? Yeah.
Which is a completely invalid reading of the Bible. Every legitimate Bible scholar will tell you the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think, so if you were, as a young adult, to have a room full of church leaders that you could say, what do they need to, like, you could address the young adults leaving the church and, like, obviously they don't want that to happen. What would you say to them?
Oh, so many things. I mean, I think I would ask about, like, I would first ask, what are your views on Jesus? Because I think people have different views of who he was, right? He was someone who consistently stood with the marginalized. Right. He was someone who consistently opposed violent forces, was someone who was not about religious hypocrisy. I mean, he constantly critiqued the Pharisees. So he would not in any way be a Christian nationalist, which is why I would ask them, what are your views on Jesus? Because I think once we can get on the same page of who Jesus actually was, there would be no reason to support then a Jesus who isn't like these nationalist ideologies we see, right? And so I would tell them, let's let go of all the hatred and all the bigotry and actually like practice what you preach. Let's go out and help the community. Let's go help the poor people. Let's go gather the minorities who have been banned from this space, like the LGBT, and actually love them and include them in this space, not the fake inclusion that they have, and do life together in the right way, where you stand and listen and don't even give opinion. Listen to someone who's struggling and meet them where they're at. And I would have that type of conversation. Who is Jesus? And let's actually practice the person of Jesus. Because I think from what we see in the Bible, Jesus was revolutionary, and for a reason. I feel like there's a reason why a movement started on his persona. Someone who really shook things up, was like, hey, these Pharisees are actually the ones who are going to be burning in hell, because they're not, their heart is full of hatred. And I feel like we're seeing modern day Pharisees today.
Yeah. So I know of a faith community that doesn't have these sort of biases that you are part of, called Not Church.
Yeah.
What is it? How do you describe it to friends?
Yeah, I would say it is an online community of people with very different beliefs, coming from all sorts of background, people who are still very much Christian, some who are deconstructed Christians, some who are agnostics, some atheists, some mysticists, some Satanists, a bunch of stuff. that just are in a space where they can disagree, but be in a or disagree or learn from each other, and be in a place that's actually supportive. And people are just inquisitive and like, I want to know more about your view. I want to actually hear about what's going on in your life, right? People constantly talk about things that they're going through. People are very supportive, holding space for one another. Other times we talk about politics and everyone's like, you know, this is what's going on. This is how I feel about it. And just having a conversation. It's been such a supportive space for me to process. Sometimes I feel like I'm crashing out every day on politics and people just listen to me. They're like, no, like I agree. Like, you know, and so it's been such a great community of people. And they have meetups, which is fun. They get to do some meetings and actually meet each other over Zoom. And there's going to be in-person meetups, which is fun.
Yeah. And people will ask me online, like, where am I a pastor? That's where I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's amazing. And also it's an interesting place because of my online presence, like people in our community will see like a TikTok video, and like I talked about being on fire, and one of our members was like, okay, so what do you guys think about this? Because like, I really like this emotional experience, and this video, like it kind of felt like he was kind of going in this other direction, and there was a conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think it's wonderful and beautiful. And the other thing that is very different about this faith community is that we don't accept donations.
Yeah.
Partially because tithing is not an actual thing in the Bible.
Yeah.
And that's another whole conversation. But so what we try to do is pay for what you get. To be part of that community is $3 a month. And we're also not part of this capitalist system that preferences people who have expendable income.
Right.
And so if $3 a month is too much for you, you can just message me. I'll get you over free. But in order to do that, you go to patreon.com/skepticpastor, patreon.com/skepticpastor, $3 a month. And you know what? If it doesn't work for you, just stop.
Yeah.
Stop paying. And if you are listening to this podcast and can share it and give us all the stars, this is helpful. In fact, this episode, like, you should share it with the pastors in your life to hear this firsthand story. That's it. That's the podcast. Shout out to the Choir Network, to Patheos, to Matthew and Keith, who make everything happen. Now, get out of here. Go do something to make the world a better place. Okay? We'll see you next time.